the bunny, but what was I saying? Hi everyone, Olive the Chug here. You've got Olive and me, Taylor, coming today to tell you some summer tips for cooling down your pets. And we've got tips for not just dogs, but a couple of animals as well. Even though we are well into summer, most of you have been a few weeks into this terribly hot weather. I just wanted to give you some summer tips before we did end. And we are not done with these heat waves. We are not done. We are just in the middle of it. And so if you've run out of ideas or you haven't had any ideas so far, and you're getting desperate on how to cool your pets down, I've got some tips for you today. And so I've got to put Olive down because I do need two hands to tell these to you. So tip number one, I think a lot of us with dogs specifically like to bring our dogs out with us. And so you're riding with your dog in the car often, or you're taking your dog somewhere and you're between places. Maybe you've been gone a little while, or it's an especially hot day and you're worried your dog is panting and you thought, oh my gosh, it needs water. I don't have a way to do this. So it's best to just always have the water on hand. And so what I do is the first thing is I'm always carrying around this bowl. I always have this bowl on me. Well, I like it because it's flat. Look at that, okay? It's only about a ½ inch wide, and I just stick it into my purse. You could leave it in your car. It could fit in a cargo pocket. It could fit in a backpack. It's very versatile. It has a carabiner. If you have a very large dog, this is tiny. It can clip to their collar and they can carry their own stuff, right? So I do keep this on me at all times. That way I'm never forgetting it or taking it from place to place. I leave this in my car. This one is specifically made for pets. I did buy this at a pet store. And all it does is collapse out and you fill it with water. They have a place to drink. So you can buy these at pet stores. They're fairly cheap because they're made of cheap materials, but they hold up well. I've had this for 3 years now when I first bought it. So if you're looking for other options, I think some places you could also go, if you don't have a pet store, they actually make these now for camping supplies. People who go camping are also space saving, but may also need a bowl or a cup. And so they make these for people now too. So if you can't find one at a pet store or that seems overpriced, check the camping section at Walmart, check Target, Amazon, go online, go to camping specific stores. They have these. They're called bowls or cups, but they work for dogs. They don't care what it is, what it's named. If it holds water, they can drink from it. But that's only the first step. If you have this, it might not be enough because you're missing the key ingredient, and that's water. So what you could do, take an old water bottle you've already drinking from, refill it at the sink, keep it in your car. The only concern with this is, one, you are using plastic water bottles, even though you're going to be reusing it. The concern is if you do leave this in your car, which I do, the plastic that these types of water bottles are made of can degrade over time and leach into the water different chemicals and BPAs. So that stuff can be prevented by buying a higher quality reusable water bottle, which is now what I carry. I no longer use this like I did kind of in the beginning when I realized I should carry water all the time. One thing you can buy, instead of using those gross plastic bottles, you can buy reusable bottles. And you could still buy reusable plastic bottles. They make those BPA free as well. They're also reusable, saving the environment. You can use that. They're generally cheaper. I do like something a little more durable, and I do like buying the insulated metal ones, like this. And here's why. I like these in particular because they are metal and they are insulated. So that means if you are leaving it in the car, and I will undo this for you, so you can see inside they're metal. And I do like these better because when you leave these in the car, the metal is going to prevent it from heating and cooling so rapidly so often. And so your water will actually stay a controlled temperature even when your car is starting to overheat. Your water will stay controlled. It doesn't mean it's going to stay cool. You're not going to have ice cold water if this is in your car for a month, but it keeps it more room temperature. And so you're not opening super hot water for a dog who's already hot. I like the metal better. And you can get any brand. They all insulate fairly well. This particular one that I have is a 50/50 brand. It's a little cheaper than the competitors, which is why I bought it. If it's a metal insulated container, it's going to work. You can buy any brand you want. This just happens to be the 50/50 brand, and I did like the green color because it matches my green cup. So we have those two together. So that's tip 1. Always carry water on hand. Leave them in your car. You're not gonna forget it because it's already there. Okay, tip number 2, you're going to use this magical thing here. This is just an old washcloth, an old rag, as you can tell. It's nothing new. Just get something old like this. And there's many things you can actually do with this. So there's 3 things I'm gonna show you can do. 1, turn it into something like this. If you have a small dog, this is enough because it will wrap around their neck and you can pin it there. If you have a larger dog, you can get something like a tea towel, a hand towel. If it's a really large dog, maybe you would want to get a hand towel but cut it to size so it's more of a strip that will tie around their neck. You want a cloth like this though, this not microfiber, you want like a terry cloth that will keep the water and absorb it. Step 1 that you could do with it, like I said, make sure it's something that will wrap your dog's neck. This is small enough for Olive. And you're going to wet it in the sink, soak it, okay? So I'm doing that now. I'm soaking the washcloth. And then you're gonna wring it out just so it's to get rid of the excess water. Oops. You have this soaked washcloth, and then all you do is you take it and you wrap it around the dog's neck. This will keep the dog cool because as the water is evaporating off of this washcloth, it's pulling the heat from the cloth, but also your dog. And the neck is a good spot for this because 1, they're used to wearing their collar anyway. This isn't gonna bother them around their neck. You're not putting a shirt or anything like that on them. And it's close to where they're having heat loss anyway. Dogs lose heat from their head and their paws. So putting this on their neck is kind of aiding in that loss in those key areas. So this is the cheap way to use this. I do wanna show you, they do make them. So I got this from Petco. It is, I believe, their brand, but it's basically the same thing I showed you, but it's pre-made. So it has little Velcro tabs here, and you wet it, you soak it just like I did with the washcloth, you wring it out just like the washcloth, and it Velcros around the dog. But it works the same. If you don't want to spend money on something like this, you could use the washcloth. And honestly, I think this lasts a little longer. So I would really recommend the washcloth. And that's just tip 1 for this. The other thing you're going to do is you can actually twist this up, or sometimes what I will do is I will knot this. So I've created this little knot here and it's still soaked, and now I'm going to freeze it. And so you're gonna place it in the freezer. Let's pretend I did that. You're gonna place it in the freezer, and after about an hour and a half, it's going to be frozen solid. So when you remove it from the freezer, it's going to keep your dog cool, because if they're one that likes to play with toys, this is a cool toy. Literally. They can play tug-of-war. They can grab one and you can grab the other. They can sit there and chew on it. I've seen dogs just chew on this because the coolness feels good to their mouths and their gums. So this becomes a way to keep your dog cool using the same cheap method. You can do both, combine them, put one on their neck and give them one to chew on. It's a good, cheap way, and you can get, if you don't want to use your good washcloths, garage sale, Goodwill, go to your local thrift store, buy something like this and create something cool for your pet for the summer. So you can also use this without even getting it wet. If you don't want to wet a washcloth, there's a way to use this to keep your dog cool as well. And so same material, same as a washcloth, but get something larger, okay? So you're gonna get a towel. And the reason you want a towel is because you're gonna lay it on the ground outside. And why you do that? A lot of dogs, regardless of if it's summer or not, they like to go outside and sit in the sun. To sit out in the sun, they have to lay on that hot ground. That's going to burn their paws, it's gonna burn their sides, they can get rashes and burns. It's not good for them. So a way to help them with that, it's not that they like the hot ground, some do, but it's also they just want the sun, but the consequence is being on the ground. And so to help them out, you're just going to lay this towel out on the cement for them, okay? If they're on the grass, not a problem. Cement though, bricks, stuff like that, you're going to lay this out and your dog can lay there in the sun, in the heat. They'll still feel the heat from the concrete up through this, but it won't burn them because the cloth is there to protect their bodies. If you want something more permanent, buy a rug. You can leave an area rug, an old one, garage sale, something like that. Leave an old area rug outside on the concrete if that's all you've got, and let your dog lay there. Like I said, it will protect their body because the cloth is not keeping the heat like the cement is. And so it's really keeping that temperature down. They're still getting that warm sun. All right, so I brought Olive back to try out our wet washcloth idea. I'm just gonna set her on the counter because she's a good girl. We'll clean it after. Okay, so Olive can go here. All speed. And so I'm just gonna tie this around her neck. Like I said, Olive is small enough to where this will kind of work. If your dog's neck is just slightly too big, you can use a pin, or if you have a very large dog, cut strips and cut long strips and tie those. So now that you can see, Olive has her nice little fashionable cool cloth on to keep her cool, but it doesn't bother her because it's around her neck. So we're gonna let her enjoy that because it is a little hot in here, and so keep her cool by doing that. Okay, another tip. If your dog really loves water, you could get a spray bottle. Just mist your dog down every once in a while. Like I said, that evaporative cooling really helps them. If they're a water lover, they may love this. Some will try and catch it with their mouth. My dogs don't. They're not into the spray bottle. They take it as discipline, even though I don't use it much for that. I actually use it for my plants, but they see it, they run. So if your dog does like water, this is a good option. Invest in a good water bottle. This was probably at the dollar store. It works. Another tip relating to water, set up a sprinkler system. Buy a cheap one that used to be for kids. They make those hoses that do the spray kind of effect. Dogs will run through that. Dogs enjoy that. If you don't have a pool, buy a kiddie pool, fill it up for your dog. All those things work. And just because your dog might not like something like a misting, doesn't mean they don't like swimming. Olive loves to swim. She hates when she gets sprayed with water. She hates hoses. She even hates bathing, but if she's fully submerged, she loves to swim in pools. And if you follow us on Instagram, you can see tons of photos of her in the pool. So if your dog, even if you're unsure if your dog likes water because thus far they haven't enjoyed things like that, get a kiddie pool and put them in it and submerge. And even if they don't stay in it, just getting them fully soaked and letting them kind of run it off for a while in the yard. It's good exercise. It feels good on their body. It's a good way to cool off. Another tip that feels really weird in my hand, ice. And so you don't actually want to give your dogs ice directly. I've read some bad things on that, especially your dog's trying to keep a certain internal temperature. And if you're feeding them these frozen cubes, it can mess with that and it can make them sick. So one way to go around that, but to still cool them down internally, put ice in their water. It will melt over time. It keeps their water kind of cool. Most dogs will not drink water obsessively, but that cool drink every once in a while can feel really good. And my dogs love it when I put the ice in their water. They actually take a few drinks right then, but it's not as extreme and it's not enough to get them that sick stomach or throw them off internally. It's actually a good way to get them cool inside. My final dog tip before I move to other animals, my final cool dog tip is to make some popsicles for them. And this might sound really complicated, but this is all you need, some dog food. And so this is some Merrick wet food. Feed your dog whatever wet food you already feed it. If you feed it dry food only, just buy a small can of wet food. They make cans smaller than this. And what you do, there it is. And what you do, I don't know if you'll be able to see this. Here we go. So what you do here is you're just going to take a scoop of that wet food. This is a scoop they normally get for dinner. And you're gonna scoop it into a dish. And so, as you can see here, we got some nice gel and we've got the chunks of food. Okay, so as you can see here, I have this, it's just a scoop of their wet food. And what it really is, it's gonna become the doggy popsicle. I could put this in the freezer right now as is, it will freeze there to the bowl, and then when I feed them at night, I'll add in the rest of the wet food or the rest of the kibble, whatever you feed your dog, and they'll have this nice little cool treat inside. And you don't wanna do a lot. You don't wanna do their full serving of food because like I said with the ice, feeding them something like that can upset them. So you just want a little bit, just a little cooling taste. You don't have to put it in a bowl this big. You can get a small little cup. You could put it in there. You could put it in like cupcake tins, put wet food in there. All right, so that's it for our dog tips. Minnie here doesn't have any cooling bandana on because she actually has very little body fat and she doesn't get hot very easily. But she has some tips for your small animals. So we have a rabbit here at our house. If you have a guinea pig, it will work the same. Rats, chinchillas, but really I'm going to be talking about rabbits here in this case because they do overheat easily. Rabbits are made to live in cold climates. And so any kind of weather above about 85 degrees can become really hot for a rabbit. So how do you cool your rabbit down? And because I do have a rabbit, I have these methods pre-done already. Here we keep our rabbit indoors, but either way this will apply whether you keep your rabbit outside or inside. You can use these tips. So tip number one, we're going to take this water bottle that we created in the first part of this video, and you can actually freeze this water bottle. So I'm only going to fill it up to about half of the water bottle, and what you're going to do is you're going to freeze it. And so I have some water bottles that are actually frozen here. And so here we have one of the frozen water bottles. It's nothing special. I take the label off so that the rabbit does not eat the label, but this frozen water bottle acts as kind of a mini AC for your rabbit. You just throw it in the cage, leave it there. If it's very hot, sometimes you'll see them snuggling up to it to keep cool. If it's not so hot, it just kind of keeps the air around the enclosure cooler. If you have a free roam rabbit, that works too. You just leave one out and the rabbit will find it when it needs to cool down. But these are a good alternative because you're not putting anything harmful in there with your rabbit, but it's keeping it cool. So that's one thing to do, and we'll bring that to our rabbit in a second today. The other thing you can do to keep your rabbit cool is freeze a tile. So this is actually just a ceramic tile. I bought a single tile at Home Depot. You can go to any other hardware store, even specialty flooring stores. Buy a ceramic tile and place it in your freezer. This takes a little bit longer to fully freeze, but once it is frozen, you could place it in the enclosure as well. So wherever your rabbit's staying, whether it's inside or outside, place this tile. It's actually very cold to the touch, and a rabbit, again, could go on top of it, kind of lay out, cool down. It could be next to it. You could put a blanket over this so it's not cool directly to the rabbit. Or even if the rabbit doesn't go on this, or you place it near the cage up against it, this will still kind of let off cool air into the area the rabbit's staying. So we're gonna place this in there with the rabbit as well. We'll take these both in there. So it has something to keep it cool, and then I'll show you one more cool thing we can do when we get inside with the rabbit. All right, here we have Billy, and this is where he stays. Right now he's getting free roam. This is not Billy's permanent enclosure, but it's where he stays for now as we prepare his new one. For Billy, we have the two things we did pre-prepare. So I like to spread them out so he kind of gets that coolness all around his room. And so one, we'll just toss the water bottle out into this area. I like to put a water bottle out where he feeds because this area is more open and he can kind of lay against the bottle. For the tile, I like to place it underneath here because it keeps, as the tile cools, it's going to circulate down here and kind of keep this underneath cool. Okay, so now we've got this cool water bottle, and I have placed the tile underneath, as you could see there, and Billy is also somewhere back there. The last thing I want to give a tip to, if you have an indoor rabbit specifically, turn on the fan. If you don't have a ceiling fan, buy a freestanding fan and place it near the cage. The key here, as with other animals as well, most animals do not like airflow directly on them. So what you're going to do, if you have a ceiling fan, make sure you have an enclosure that kind of allows for cage space. So for Billy specifically, he has this underneath to go in. So he's not going to feel the draft directly, but the fan will help create a circulation in the room that will cool down the rabbit. Alternatively, if you have a freestanding fan, you're going to want it to blow over the enclosure. Again, Billy himself will not feel the draft, but he will get the benefits of that circulating airflow, keeping him cooler. All right, so thank you for watching. Stay cool this summer, and we'll see you next time for camping.